Hello and welcome to a bit of a different series on the channel, something I've been wanting to do for a little while and thought about maybe this is the right time to give it a go. We're going to go through and have a look at my attempt at racing in the Ozicar F4 Series. Now, this is season 2 of the F4 Series for Ozicar. I didn't participate in the first season, but I thought, you know what? Why not have a crack? Brand new car to me, have barely done any driving in it whatsoever, so it'll be a little bit of learning along the way, and let's just see how we go. In the background, you've just got a qualifying lap running, and managed to qualify quite well in P6 for the first race of the season, which is at Silverstone. And what I'll do is chuck up the schedule up on the screen for you, and as you can see, we head to Snetterton for the second round before we move on to Brands Hatch, Donington Park, Alton Park, and Knock Hill, which is actually a track I've never driven and I still don't own. So we'll need to get some practice in there for sure. So yeah, it's going to be tough. There's some very, very good drivers in the series, but I'm certainly looking forward to the challenge and just to sort of see where this series goes. The series runs fortnightly, so the idea is hopefully I'll be able to get a video out sort of in between each round and sort of have a chat about how I went and probably what I can improve on and the things I can do better and anything that I found interesting out of the race. So looks like qualifying is coming to an end with myself coming through Stowe here, heading into that final chicane, where there is a little bit of action in this race. Well, I call it action. You'll get a chance to see. And we come across the line and, like I said, managed to put it in P6 to start the race. So let's pick it up from there and have a look at the first couple of laps of race 1. So as you might be able to see, P5 wasn't able to connect to the server and missed out on the start. So straight away 1 position, which is very helpful. We got an okay start to kick off with. Again, my first third race ever in an F4, so I haven't really got the hang of starting it yet. And as you are at the start of any new series, very, very nervous to make sure you don't make any mistakes. But I do actually make a pretty aggressive move into turn 2, sending it sort of 3 wide in the middle, and we do get a little bit of a tap with Ewan there as well. So it was a pretty hectic start to the race, but managed to get myself straight up to P4, which was obviously positive. Now, something I'm not really normally that good at is being aggressive at the start of the races, and this is something I think I've improved on a little bit over the last, I suppose, year out of the Aussie car type series, is trying to, make moves when the opportunities arise without being crazy. And I think that's sort of what, although I was very nervous, gave me the confidence to try and go for that move into turn 2. Now, start of a race, start of a brand new series, as I was saying, you really want to just try and minimize mistakes and maximize the opportunity for you to gain as many points as possible. And as you can see, not many mistakes have made so far. The field fans back pretty far, and the draft in these cars is strong enough to keep you with someone if you've got sort of equivalent pace, and give you a chance to pass, but not enough like the skippies that I would usually drive in Aussie car to really drag you along with a pack. So you can see I'm already starting to fall off the back of the front 3 of Thomas Hinds, James Chastanoff, and Ewan Baker. So sort of trying to bridge that gap and trying to stay with them. I think Ewan goes for a move into Stowe, which makes Chasty have to take a slightly compromised line, which keeps me involved at this point in time, which is good. And the car behind sort of has a look at making a move, but not really a threat. So we managed to get through lap 1, and that's the main thing. That was my first goal. Get off the line, make it through lap 1. And we've been lucky enough to pick up a couple of spots, one on track and one with, unfortunately, I think it was Scott not being able to make the grid for race 1. So I guess from here on in, the plan is to just try and slowly make up any positions if possible, and I guess think about what the pit strategy is going to be. And that was something that was interesting in this race, as it always is in Aussie car, trying to think about how we're going to, when are we going to pit, how we're going to pit compared to the people around us. Will we end up in traffic? Will we end up in fresh air? The draft isn't crazy enough to make it you have to pit with someone to try and keep the draft and keep that extra speed. But it obviously helps if you can as well. So pretty interesting start to the race and start to a brand new series as well. So we might pick it up a little bit later in the race when things start to happen. So as you can see, we're sort of around lap 3 or 4 now. The field sort of started to spread out a little bit. You can see the even gaps behind. Thomas Hinz has already pitted. He pitted quite early, so I'm sitting in P3 at the moment, but you can see it's a similar gap from Ewan Baker back to Chastity, back to me, back to, I think it's Ali behind me, and then it sort of tumbles down the field. So we started to spread out, and we're all sort of just within draft distance of each other, but not a lot of action, not a lot of moves going. So towards the end of lap 7 here in a 10-lap race, and I believe Ali behind me pits. Now, you can't pit on the last lap or a lap that leads onto the last lap, which means my chance to pit is either this lap or next lap. I decide to stay out. Ali decides to go in, which means I really need to make sure that I have a good in-lap here for this last sort of chance to make sure that I stay in front of Ali and get out ahead. So that was sort of the goal for the next part of the race. Now, I was pretty sure that Chastity hadn't practiced his pit stops here at Silverstone, so I was a little bit concerned about being behind him. I wasn't quite sure how well he would know the braking markers and that kind of thing, but I wasn't going to make a move on him as well. We're actually teammates in this series, different paint at the moment, but we'll sort that out for next round. So, yeah, I was a little bit hesitant on the pit entry, but I also knew I wanted to try and maximize the amount of time. Chastity did probably pit a bit, brake a little bit earlier than I thought he would, and you can see me trying to sneak up the inside a little bit there. But overall, we both got in. I didn't rear-ender him, so that's a bonus there. So we come into the pits, try and have a tidy stop. Which we did relatively, and basically try and figure out where we're coming out now. There's only really 2 laps to go, so this is coming in on lap 8 and going out on lap 9. And you can see there the leaders just going past. That's Thomas Hinz and Ewan Baker, but we do manage to come out ahead of Ali there, so all's well and good. And it was basically now a fight for the podium between teammates, which is a little bit awkward, but unfortunately for Chastity, he makes the smallest of errors on the exit here. You can see just touches the sand on the exit, and it gives me a run down, I believe it's the Hamilton straight. And you can see, get a good run and, give each other plenty of room. And Chastity in the Discord said he wasn't going to fight it as well. So this was good for me. It put me up into P3, but it did mean that it left Chastity now a little bit under threat by Ali behind. And we managed to hold on to P3 and bring it home for a podium in the first race of the season. You can see Chastity managed to hold off Ali for P4. They obviously started to battle a little bit, which gave me that little bit of space between us. So the results of race 1, as you can see, Thomas Hinz, too good for Ewan Baker, with myself managing to get a good P3, up 3 spots from James Chastanoff, Ali, Adrian Duke, Julian, Jared Thomas, Luke Quist, and Liam Banks round out your top 10 for the first race. So this kind of gave me a bit to think about for the second race. Progressive grid, so I now start from P3. We've banked some good points. And I guess it's all about trying to consolidate what has been kind of a surprising start to the Ozicar series. I kind of knew that I had a little bit of good pace from the practice sessions, but there were some people like Hinzy who hadn't been in the session, so it's kind of hard to judge yourself against those guys when you don't really know what their pace is going to be. But yeah, so now my headset is sort of thinking, all right, get a good start, stay clean, and try and skip away from the main pack. I'm also trying to consider, well, Hinzy went really early in the first race for his pit stop, so is that something that I do as well? or do I try and go late again? It seemed to be an okay strategy. I didn't run into any traffic going late, so there was a few things that I still had to think about. But yeah, let's have a look at how race 2 got underway. So, race 2, starting from P3, a really good opportunity to consolidate a great start to the series here in the second race. And I actually get a really good start off the line in this second race. So much so that I'm able to clear Ewan Baker in turn 1 and before turn 2, which ends up being really crucial to my race. You can see there, managed to clear him and try and tuck in behind Hinsey, who clearly has the speed. Chastity has to go a bit aggressive to be defensive and sends it quite deep on me. I had to give him plenty of space, but we don't go anywhere close to making contact, and I managed to stay ahead of him. And this is where it kind of all starts to kick off for the guys behind. Chastity runs a little bit wide, and you'll see them come out of the sweeping sort of kink there, 3 wide, almost 4 wide. And what that does is gives me a chance to skip away. You can already see how much of a gap Hinsey and I have started to make on the field just from that little bit of chaos there. And you can see they're still going 2 wide, 2 by 2, as Chastity fights with Ewan and the guys behind fight as well. And all that is doing is sort of playing into the hands of Hinsey and I. So right now it was head down and just try your best to try and stick on the back of Hinsey, who clearly has the speed, and hope that the gaggle of cars behind sort of continue to battle their way, and hopefully we can start to open up a little bit of a gap, which is exactly what we start to do. You can see as we come through the Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel section just how much that gap's already opened up. Everyone else gets single file in behind, but we've already sort of managed to put a second on the field, probably a little bit more before we get to Stowe, which is just, couldn't ask for a better start. And you actually have a look at the background here. Quite a few cars diving to the pit lane. Three or four probably in that top 10 going straight into the pits. I'm guessing they had enough of the battling that had already been happening on lap 1. And my teammate Chastity was one of them. So I didn't really have him as protection from the cars behind, or sort of to be with me in this part of the race. So we move on to lap 4 now. And we saw Hinsey last race, went really early with the pit stop. He was leading both times, so it wasn't like a positional thing, but he decided to stay out a little bit longer, as we see a little bit of lap traffic getting out of the way, which is always handy. But he decides to pit this lap. So I'm sitting in behind him, and my kind of thinking was, and I think I remember saying to Chastity, I'm going to do whatever Hinsey does. And at the last minute, there was something in my head that said, no, stay out. Stay out and put in a really, really good in lap and see if you can jump him through the pit cycle. So I don't know if it was me just trying to get some extra sim speed broadcast. Maybe if I'm leading the race, then, might get a little bit of extra coverage. But something was telling me, stay out, do that one extra lap. And I knew I had to push. So this lap was, all out qualifying style, trying to get as much out of the car as possible. Because I knew that there was a chance that Hinsey might end up in traffic, or he might have a bad pit stop, or he has to come out on cold tyres, and I'm going to get that extra lap on the hot, nice, grippy, sticky tyres, and that was the plan. So trying to send it and get around as quickly as we possibly can. So skipping forward, we come through Stowe, and this is our end lap. So we dive into the pits. This time I'm able to go a little bit deeper than last time because I don't have my teammate Chastity in front of me, and we get a really good entry. I was pretty much on perfect for that entry. And now it's up to the pit crew to do their thing. And do their thing they really did, because I was having a look at the JRT data after the race, and my pit crew had a faster pit stop than anyone else in the top 15, I think it was, and it was by a good sort of 0.8 to 1 second on everyone. And as you'll see in just a moment, as we get a little bit of smoke off the tyres and we come out of pit lane, that 1 second was super crucial because I still come out in front of Thomas Hinz. And he did look like he had a little bit of traffic there, but I don't think that held him up. So I think it was a combination of a really good in-lap and a really good pit stop. But it wasn't enough to be away from the tow. It wasn't enough to give me a real good chance of holding him off either. And as you can see, we're up to the Maggots and Beckett's section. Same lap, and Hinzy's already right up on my tail. Now, I was kind of stuck in two minds here. Because we'd pitted a lot earlier than last time, there's still sort of just under half the race to go, basically half the race to go. And I've still got that group of cars right behind with Chastity and Ewan chasing me down. So I made a conscious decision to basically go, nah, you can have this one, Hinzy, and I'm going to try and tuck into your toe and see if we can't put a gap on these guys that are chasing. So you see, give him plenty of room, broke early, and just try and sneak in on the back. I think from memory, looking at my Delta, that sort of cost me about 0.5, 0.6 of a second, which, to be honest, as a passing move into that chicane, you can't ask for much more. Now, as you can see, I was able to stay in the toe of Hinzy for that whole lap after he overtook me. But coming into turn, I guess it's 4, I have a little tiny wobble. It's the most minuscule wobbles. You're going to see it right here. Just that little bit of rear end getting loose and having to, adjust the steering, and that was all Hinzy needed to break my toe. He got more momentum out of this corner, and I couldn't really do anything about it. And once I got just that little bit too far out of the toe, he started to drive away, which was a bit of a shame because I was able to stick with him, and, you get to that last lap, who knows what could happen, but I'll just show you how small of a little wiggle it was and all it needed to be for him to get away. You'll see here on the replay, just carry a little bit too much speed in, the rear gets loose, and that's all someone of Hinzy's quality needs. And that was pretty much it. You can see Hinzy just off in the distance there, and Chastity in behind me. I think he had to fend off a little bit from Ewan, but managed to get ahead. And honestly, the last sort of 1.5 laps, I kind of backed off a little bit, sort of started driving 85, 90% just to try and make sure I could get it home in P2. With someone like the likes of Hinz in front of me, I knew once I made that mistake, there wasn't a very big chance of him making one, and if I just pushed harder and harder and harder, I felt like I was going to make an error. So just decided to keep it safe and just make sure that we brought the thing home, and that's exactly what we managed to do. And we managed to escape from the first round of Ozicar Formula 4 with a double podium, which is something I don't think I've ever been able to say in quite a lot of seasons of Ozicar Skip Barber, apart from, I guess, the Dirt Oval round where my only ever win came. So was pretty stoked with that. So the results of race number 2 were Thomas Hinz from myself in P2, James Chastanoff P3, Ewan Baker P4, Ali P5, Julian P6, Brody Shepherd P7, Jared Thomas, Liam Banks, and Dennis Hancock rounding out the top 10. And you can see the series standings. So Hinzy's already off to an 8-point lead, but I managed to get myself into second spot, 1 point ahead of Ewan Baker and a few points or 4 points ahead of my teammate James Chastanoff. So a really good start to the series. So fingers crossed you enjoy my little recap of the first round. Hopefully the next few are a little bit shorter, and hopefully we can get a little bit more overtaking action to go along with it. Cheers for joining. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.